A Washington Post columnist warning the left that Latino voters in Nevada are increasingly switching to the GOP, and the trend could soon hurt Democrats nationwide. Columnist Henry Olsen says, quote, "It's usually a bad idea to bet against the House, and Clark County Democrats are Nevada's political house. But Lady Luck has a wandering eye. If Latinos move rightward enough, the GOP stands ready to count its winnings and break the Democrats' bank."
Really doubled down there on the gambling part. Beverly Hallberg, president of the District Media Group and a Heritage Foundation fellow. She joins us now. Beverly, break down why that author is so correct on this.
Well, he's correct because he's looking at the polling data, and what the polling is showing is that minority communities, especially the Latino community, has always cared about the American dream. And as people think that the American dream is harder to achieve, you're going to see their votes follow suit. So I think in November, when we have midterms, we're likely to see it's the elite that go to Democrats, and the practical working class is going to be going more towards Republicans, because at the end of the day, the economy does matter, costs do matter, and people care about the American dream.
Yeah, and it's not just the economy, Beverly. It's also some social issues and the border policies. We saw what happened in Mayra Flores' district, where she flipped that Democrat district. Historically, when Democrat, she flipped it red.
Yeah, the border does matter. There is this mistaken notion by Democrats thinking that the Latino community wants open borders. They do want compassion. Obviously, many of them have family members still in other countries, but the reality is they come here because they want the rule of law. They've left countries that don't honor the rule of law, so they're here to make sure that they can have a job, provide for their families, that their kids are safe, and especially Latinos on these border states, they're seeing firsthand some of the chaos that ensues because of this border crisis. And obviously, you only have to look at Washington, D.C. and Mayor Muriel Bowser, who is already concerned about the migrants coming here. These states and the people who live in these communities have long been concerned about the migrants who are being led into their states.
Meantime, Beverly, the big story of the day, the media trying to spin yesterday's GDP report as just fueling recession fears, despite 2 straight quarters of negative growth, falling in line with the widely accepted definition of a recession. I think the winners in the gaslighting here had to be Politico. Here's what they said, quote, "Somehow, some way, Joe Biden is back in the game after enduring a brutal year dominated by economic angst, legislative setbacks, and sinking approval ratings. The president is suddenly on the verge of a turnaround that the White House believes could salvage his summer." Beverly, is any of this in line with the reality that Americans are facing?
It's not, and it's hard to tell these days who's a reporter and who is paid by the Biden administration payroll. What you see is that reporters and media outlets seem to be in lockstep with the Democrat talking points. It seems like they're actually talking with each other, not only praising the president when he obviously is not doing too well, but also, as you mentioned, redefining words like recession and woman, among other things, even to the point of contradicting what they've reported before. So I think this is a poor attempt by media outlets to try to make the American people think that the pain that they're feeling is not as bad as they think. But I think this turns out poorly for media establishments and outlets, because they're just going to continue to lose a customer base if they gaslight Americans.
How do you think it turns out for President Biden, though? His strategy right now, as all politicians do, is to try and paint the rosiest picture possible. But Americans they live in reality, and they can feel the inflation. They know that prices are up. So how do you think that political strategy is? Don't believe what you feel, believe what I tell you.
Yeah, it's not going to work, because it's one thing to have fancy messaging when what you're talking about is not what people experience day to day. But what they're experiencing is in direct conflict with what you're saying. People don't trust you. I think a better messaging strategy for this administration would be to acknowledge the pain and to talk about how he is going to fix it. When there is discussion that this is all Putin's problem, Putin's tax hike, the president essentially saying, it's not my fault, I'm going to put blame somewhere else, and there's nothing I can do. People do want solutions, and I think the trust that people have in this administration is eroded so much that they're just tuning out everything they're saying.
Beverly Hallberg, nobody's tuning out you. Thanks for joining us. Have a great weekend.